Door, not doorknob. Spent the last 13 years of my life thinking it was doorknob. The groom's bride is a How's it going, everyone? The One MFP here. I hope you're all having a great day today. I'm back to react to another album, and the album I'm going to be reacting to is A Fever You Can't Sweat Out by Panic! At the Disco. This is going to be the first time I react to anything from Panic! At the Disco. I'm fairly unfamiliar with the band. I think the most I ever heard from them was way back, I think when this album came out. This was around 2005. They had a single that saw some mainstream success. It's kind of slipping my mind now, but he says something about a doorknob, and in the video he has a top hat. So I'm guessing that song's gonna be in this album. But anyways, for the most part, this will be an introduction to Panic! At the Disco for me. I normally like doing song reactions before getting into full albums, but I figured we'd just jump right into it this time. We're going with Panic! At the Disco's first album, and let's get right into it. If you're new to this channel, welcome. My name's Matt. I post reaction videos on this channel, so if you enjoy that type of content and you like this video, please take the time to check out some of my other reactions, and if you enjoy those, please subscribe. I always appreciate the support. Now let's get right into this. A Fever You Can't Sweat Out by Panic! At the Disco. There's actually an exclamation mark after Panic, and then you have At the Disco, so I'm guessing that said Panic! At the Disco. The first song on the album is Introduction. So is that going to be an actual song, or is it just going to be kind of a melody playing to introduce you to the album? Let's see. They're like flipping through channels here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we proudly present a picturesque score of Packing Fantasy.
Alright, so that was the introduction. I don't really have much to say about that. It seems like we were just flipping through channels of a radio station or a television, and you were kind of picking up on static in between all of that. At the end of it, he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we proudly present a picturesque score of a passing fantasy." So way to build up intrigue. Let's get right into song number 2. It goes by the name of The Only Difference Between Martyrdom and Suicide is Press Coverage. Very long title here, and if I'm looking through the track listing here, that seems to be a trend. This is very reminiscent of Fall Out Boy albums around this era as well. So I'm guessing there's some type of influence there. But anyways, titles like this could be really interesting. It's like more of a statement rather than a word that's supposed to linger throughout the song. I'm interested to see how that fits within the context of the song. Let's get right into it. Song number 2, I'm not gonna repeat the title again because that would be pretty long. Yeah, I already hear that Fall Out Boy influence.
It seems the artists these days are not who you think, so we'll pick back up on that on another page. And I believe, don't you see, I'm the narrator and this is just the prologue. Swear to shake it up and just try to listen. We're still so young, desperate for attention. And we're still so young, desperate for attention. I hate to be your eyes, Sophie boys, Sophie wise.
Whoa. It's energetic, I like it. Alright, so that was The Only Difference Between Martyrdom and Suicide is Press Coverage. I don't believe that title actually came up in the song. So this goes back to what I stated before the song started, before, I got into listening to the track. Titles like this can be interesting because it's just this statement they attach to the song rather than a word that everything tends to revolve around. A word can be a little bit more vague, whereas, a statement like this, it almost paints a whole picture for you before you even get into listening to the song. The statement here, he's comparing martyrdom and suicide. In both cases, the person is gone. With martyrdom, it's more of a sacrifice, and he's saying that the only difference between the two is how much attention one of them gets. Now, how does that affect the way we hear this song? Well, the first two things that really caught my attention about this song are the first two, lyrics within the song that caught my attention. The first one comes in that pre-chorus where he says, "I believe this may call for a proper introduction, and well, don't you see I'm the narrator and this is just the prologue." So with the introduction and this first song, they're really playing it off as if this is kind of like a play or something, or some kind of spectacle. And I find that interesting because the next thing that caught my attention was around verse 2, I think. He says, "Dear studio audience, I have an announcement to make. It seems the artists these days are not who you think, so we'll pick back up that on another page." First of all, I guess this confirms that we're kind of in like this radio show program or a TV show program, and that goes back to the introduction with the static noise. But I guess more importantly, on television and on radio programs, what we have are personalities, they're characters. They're founded on an idea to portray a certain something that's going to appeal to a certain crowd, the target audience. Now, with us being in some kind of television show or radio show, the singer here is addressing the audience and telling them that, this character is going to be founded on reality, or at least that's what it seems like here. Because with that line, he seems to be critiquing artists who are portraying something that they are not. We don't have much information in that regard yet, so we'll pick that up on another page. But at this stage, that's what it's seeming like. And with him saying in the chorus, "Swear to shake it up if you swear to listen. Oh, we're still young, so desperate for attention. I aim to be your eyes, trophy boys, trophy wives. Swear to shake it up if you swear to listen." So when he's saying swear to shake it up, I feel like he's trying to bring something different to the table here. And, if he's criticizing other artists for maybe being founded on an idea as opposed to reality, or by reality, I guess what I mean is their true selves, having their art represent what they are. Well, he's saying here, if you swear to listen, you'll pick up on what he's trying to do or what they're trying to do. They're trying to bring true artistic expression to the table where their art is mimicking who they are. The music is truly coming from within. And that's what I made of the song. But when you incorporate the title into this, I feel like there's some type of critique towards the type of attention different artists get. Perhaps Panic at the Disco feels like certain bands will sacrifice their styles and their identity to attain a certain level of fame, and that type of sacrifice gets all the attention, whereas other bands who really stay true to their identity, they get less attention. And somewhere down the line, both the artist who conform to an idea and the artist who stay true to their identity, they both have a catalog of music. It's the same end. They both express themselves through their music. How they did it was different, and the end result is one of them gets more attention than the other. So with them saying things like "I aim to be your eyes," and with a title like this, it seems like Panic at the Disco wants to bring our attention to that. They want to bring attention to the fact that certain things are overlooked. So that's how I heard this song. I'm interested to see where they go with this. I do want to see if this album continues to play out as a type of radio or TV program or show. Let's get right into the next song. London Beckoned songs about money written by machines. Going back to having statements as song titles and where we were just coming from in this song, it really fits nicely already. If we're talking about press coverage, and here we're talking about songs written by machines, it seems that more conformist songs or conformist art is what gets more of the attention. And that's the critique so far from what I'm seeing. But let's get right into the song. It's not playing. We'll just wait here until it starts playing.
Stop stalling, make a name for yourself, or you better put the pen and paper, drive me way out. If you talk, you better walk, you better back your shit up with more than good and smile under the gun. Beneath the press, it's time make a scene, make a scene, make a scene, or suck us off their shoulders, don't approve a single word that we wrote. Well, we're just a wet dream through the wet sea. Make a scene, make a scene, make a scene. soul. If you talk, you better walk, you better back your shit up. It's a sign. If you're someone with purpose or life, they're Just for the record, the weather today is slightly sarcastic with a good chance of A. Indifference of B, disinterest in what the critics say.
All right, so that was song number 3, or I mean track number 3, but song number 2 technically. We have elements from both the introduction and the first song technically incorporated into this. He said something midway through the song about the weather, which, you know, plays into this being some type of radio show or television show. And I like the way he blends that into the message of the song as well. He says the weather today is slightly sarcastic with a good chance of indifference or disinterest in what the critics say. And that ties into the press coverage we were talking about in the prior song. And in addition to that, in the pre-chorus, he also says, Panic meet the press. Now at this point in the song, we had already built up to this idea that Panic at the Disco has a certain type of attention directed towards them in talking about the things they're talking about. He says things like, stop stalling, make a name for yourself. Boy, you better put that pen to paper, charm your way out. If you talk, you better walk with more than good hooks while you're all under the gun. So with everything he said in The Only Difference, that's what I'm gonna call it because I'm not gonna keep on saying the whole title of the song. With the title of the song and with the subject matter, you could tell that the band is about to be outspoken. It really comes off as rebellious music thus far. It's confrontational against certain ideas of conformity and the level of tension that conformity gets, whereas there's a lack of attention on other deserving artists. With statements like that, if you're about to release something, if you're about to write music and what have you, there's going to be a certain level of attention on you because people want to know what you have to say. What do you bring to the table that is so different from what you're criticizing? Because it's one thing to criticize something, but when you put yourself in the group that you feel aren't getting the attention that you're talking about, you need to prove why you deserve that attention. And this song seems to speak on the pressures of being in that position. If you talk, you better walk, you better back it up with more than good hooks while you're all under the gun. So if you're going to be controversial in your statements like that, you better make sure that your songs hold the same weight as your statements do. And I find that pretty interesting considering that this is the band's first album. I don't know what the individuals members' prior work was like, if they had any, but the way I'm seeing this right now is this band has an opinion and they feel strongly about their opinion. And to put, statements like that as the titles for their songs, they have to write their songs in a manner that matches the power of those statements. If not, it's going to be hard to take this album seriously. And with this being an introductory album for the band, this is their first impression on the press and on the masses. So when they say panic, meet the press, it's time for us to take a chance. It feels like they have these opinions and maybe it held them back from creating. Maybe it made it difficult for them to be comfortable with what they were writing and what they were going to be releasing. Sometimes you just have an opinion you feel so strongly about and you just can't put the pieces together properly to really express that opinion. Sometimes you just need to put it all out there and express yourself and let it come out how it's going to come out. Maybe you'll impress yourself, perhaps you'll disappoint yourself. But if you never do it, you can't ever grow, you can't learn. You're pretty much just going to be stuck in place. So here they just decided to take that shot. They just went for it. And what I like about the chorus is, they're acknowledging what their content will do. When you make bold statements, they're good for headlines. So we're just a wet dream for the webzine. Maybe one of the things that made them feel like they were under the gun was with statements like they're making, they know that their words are going to be publicized because you could put a certain spin on it to make it fit a headline. There's a certain appeal to it. You could attach drama to it, make us hip, make a scene, or shrug us off your shoulders. They don't know if their words are going to be associated to positive things because, that criticism is going to promote people to think in a certain way, or if it's going to be seen in a negative light, or if it's just going to be ignored altogether. But either way, they can't just worry about how their words can be taken out of context. This is their freedom of expression, and they're going to have to use it if they feel the way they feel, and if they're going to make the statements they make about, this conformity. They can't allow that fear to turn their work into something that doesn't reflect their actual thoughts, and they also can't allow that fear to just silence them. Now, the next song on the album goes by the name of Nails for Breakfast, Tacks for Snacks. Let's get right into it.
Watch your mouth, oh, because your speech is slurred enough that you just might swallow your tongue. And was it God who chokes in these situations, running without knowing correct? The hospice is a relaxing
So that was Nails for Breakfast, Tacks for Snacks, and once more there was no mention of the title of the song within the song, or at least no explicit mention, I should say. But this was the first song that I felt related to the title of this album, A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, because throughout the song he seems to be talking from the perspective of somebody, or talking about somebody who seems to be sick. First verse, he's talking about somebody's speech being slurred. He mentions a hospice, he mentions a bed, and he mentions pills. And on that note, pills. Again, the title is A Fever You Can't Sweat Out. So he's got this fever that he's unable to get rid of on his own, which is why he's taking these pills. And what's interesting about that is in the chorus, he's saying, prescribe pills to offset the shakes, to offset the pills. So he's on pills to get himself off of other pills. It's like this person's on something that's supposed to help them get over something, but then this thing that's supposed to be helping them is a problem in of itself as well, so they need something else to come fix that problem. In other words, metaphorically, it's kind of like it's layers of issues. And with the way this album has gone this far, this criticism about the music industry and how conformist messages tend to have more of the attention. Just in the prior song we were talking about songs about money written by machines. They seem to be talking about the pressures that come with trying to express yourself creatively, or about really using your freedom of speech to allow yourself to be vulnerable and express yourself the way you want to express yourself. There's like this certain feel of you won't be accepted for what you are, for what you're saying, so you won't be getting the attention, whereas all these other people who are writing about this one specific thing, they're more likely to get all that attention. So your mind is kind of like pushing you towards becoming that as opposed to what you want to be. Well, I feel like the fever in a sense is representational of that feeling of fear. And as follows, I guess the pills in a sense can be something that brings you closer to becoming that machine or a part of that machine. And on that note, I found verse 1 really interesting. He was talking about your speech being slurred and you might just swallow your tongue. Swallowing your tongue, that basically would mean that you're refraining from saying something that you want to say or something that you feel because you feel like you shouldn't be saying it. Well, if they're going to do that, they're going against this freedom of expression they were talking about in earlier songs. So they're going against their own opinion. But then we go into verse 2 and he says, that's when you stutter something profound, and with the way you've been talking, every word gets you closer to hell. So as much as they seem to be confronting the press giving more coverage to certain ideas as opposed to other ideas, they fear the possibility of being condemned because they're being told that they're doing something wrong when they express themselves in the way that they're expressing themselves. So perhaps that's how London Beckon's songs about money written by machines. People get scared to express themselves because of the backlash that could follow, so they decide to express something different than what they're experiencing. And that's pretty much what I make of this song. The fever is representational of that fear of expressing yourself, and the alternative is taking these pills that will put that fever away. But taking those pills is like having nails for breakfast and tacks for snacks. They're slowly destroying you inside. Now the next song on the album goes by the name of Camisado. This is the first song where it's, just one word as the title. I'm intrigued to hear what this is all about. Let's get right into it.
Hospital bed. This was no accident. This was a therapeutic chain of events. This is the center of skin on a mental report. It's so pleasant and it's not so conventional. The anesthetic never setting and I'm wondering when the apathy and urgency is that I'll start out the day. It's so pleasant and it's not so conventional. It sure is how they normal, but we do. Can't take the key from the fight, take the fight from the kid. Just sit back. Your regular decorated emergencies. It sure is how they normal, but we do. Can't take the key from the fight, take the fight from the kid. Sit back, relax again. Your regular decorated emergency, the bruises and contusions. So remind me what you do when you're wet. Burn your place and something. Actually, even something. Camera costume causing a commotion on the gurney again. Burn your place and something. ICU's horrifying. Camera cut you causing a commotion on the gurney again. Can't take the key from the fight, take the fight from the kid. Your hospital bed. This was no accident. This was a therapeutic chain of events.
So that was Camisado, and once again, no explicit mention of the title of the song within the lyrics. And in this case, I don't know what Camisado actually means, so I can't really give any insight as to how the title of the song fits into the message I got when I listened to the song. So I guess I'll just go over, what I heard when I was listening to this song. We seem to segue from the last song pretty nicely into this one where, we were talking about somebody who was ill, and now here we have this person in a hospital bed. So if these songs are indeed connected, it would seem that whatever they were going through in the last song, they weren't able to kick that away, they weren't able to kick that fever away, and now they're in this hospital bed. And the intro here fits really well with the concept of the album, where it's, this play or this show. It says, the IV and your hospital bed, this was no accident, this was a therapeutic chain of events. This seems to be coming from the perspective of a narrator, and I really like how they were able to incorporate that into the concept of this album. So this person finds themselves in a hospital bed, and it's not because of some type of accident, it's something they did to help themselves or that they felt would help them. In the last song we were talking about pills that were supposed to help the person, and they were taking some other pills to offset the initial pills. So in other words, they were being heavily medicated for whatever it was they were going through. Now, despite trying to help themselves, they find themselves in this hospital. But the very first verse suggests that this person doesn't like the hospital. They don't like the scent of these hospital wings. They don't like the scent of the floors. Overall, it's not a good experience for them, but it's the situation they find themselves in, so they have to deal with it. And then we have these lines saying the anesthetic never set in, and I'm wondering where the apathy and urgency is that I thought I phoned in. So whatever it was that they were trying to take or trying to do to reduce their pain, it didn't work because they're still feeling the pain. Whatever help they tried to get, they never seem to get it. This person isn't feeling the level of care that they feel that they need despite whatever it is they're going through. There's a certain lack of connection or a certain level of lack of interest, which goes back into this idea of a fear of expressing oneself. At some point or another, everybody experiences pain. So naturally, if somebody's going to be true to their freedom of expression, a part of what they express at some point or another will involve pain. Now, if that pain is met with criticism, then they're more likely to mask that pain at some point. They'll be more hesitant to reveal their pain because they know that if they reveal their pain, it's going to be met with confrontation. So maybe in the prior song, that's what led this person to start taking pills. It was some way to cope with the pain. They had to kill the pain because they couldn't share it. If they shared it, they felt like they would get a negative reaction. And I feel like that encompasses the meaning of this song. The person doesn't like the situation they're in. They don't like the pain. They do their best to deal with the pain, but it ends up putting them in a bad situation regardless. They're in a hospital that they don't like being in. The things they did to try and relieve that pain, it never worked out for them. Perhaps they tried expressing themselves to get help, but they never got that help, or perhaps they were just fearful to express themselves in the first place because there are negative connotations to those feelings of pain based on how they've seen other people receive responses to their calls for help. Now, the next song on the album is called Time to Dance. Let's get right into it. So that was Time to Dance, and there was a lot about this song that had me a bit confused. First being the shotgun wedding part. boys hiding in estrogen and wearing aubergine dreams. So those bits threw me off a bit. But aside from those lines, we had lines like, she's not bleeding on the ballroom floor just for the attention, because that's just ridiculously odd. Here's the setting, fashion magazines line the walls, now the walls line the bullet holes. That was pretty much the entire first verse, but what I got from that was similarly to what we were talking about in Camisado, about how people at some point get fearful to express themselves if that means revealing their pain, and there's various reasons for that. You know, they may see other people experiencing pain and they may see the response they get when they express that pain, or perhaps they expressed pain themselves and the response they got was a negative one. I feel like here we get insight into one of the potential negative responses. Somebody's visibly in pain and there's this suggestion that they're making their pain visible to, you know, gain attention. Well, while there's this opinion that this girl is seeking attention, you know, you go to her room and there are visible signs of this pain. However, those visible signs are actually hidden. They're hidden behind these magazines, fashion magazines that are lining the wall. So I feel like that's a way of showing that this girl is not trying to make her pain visible, she's actually trying to hide her pain. So if her pain is becoming visible, it's because she's having difficulties containing it. And then we have this second verse where he says she didn't choose this role, but she'll play it and make it sincere. You cry, give me a break. So whatever it is she's going through, she didn't choose to go through this, it's circumstantial, but she'll deal with it and somebody will feel for her. But this narrator is saying, give me a break, as if he's suggesting that these people who do cry for her and who do feel for her are falling for her tactics. And then he says, but they believe it from the tears and teeth right down to the blood at her feet. So this narrator is almost suggesting that this is all an act. You know, we've been in this concept of some type of play, and we're kind of left wondering whether this is all part of the act or whether this is somebody trying to fill a role, but their everyday life is starting to bleed into this role. So their pains that they have when they go home, it's starting to influence what you see on stage. So then when we go into this chorus, have some composure, where is your posture? You're pulling the trigger all wrong. I feel like this girl is still trying to play this role she's supposed to be playing, but these issues she's experiencing is making it difficult for her to act out this role or for her to play this role. So she's having issues acting out one of her main scenes where she's pulling a trigger. She's supposed to be shooting something. Her posture's all wrong, so, you know, she's not acting it out properly. And overall, that's what I made of this song. We're put in this situation, or this scenario rather, where a girl is supposed to be acting out something and we have a narrator explaining it, but then the narrator gets caught up in the act and starts having issues noticing what's real. And what's real is that there is physical evidence that this girl is going through something, and those shouldn't be ignored. Now the next song on the album goes by the name of Lying is the Most Fun a Girl Can Have Without Taking Her Clothes Off. Coming off of this song, I'm curious to know whether this ties into what we were just talking about. Is there further implication that the girl was faking her pain and faking her issues? Let's listen to the song and find out.
Sit still, need to make you sweat. And I hear you think about it in bed. When the lights are dim and your hands are shaking as you're sliding off your dress. Think of what you did and how I hope to God he was worth it. A better kiss, harder touch, a better feel than any boy you'll ever meet. Sweetie, you had me. Girl, I wasn't look past the sweat. A better love deserving of. Let's get these teen hearts beating faster, faster. So testosterone boys and ugly girls. Will you dance to this beat and hold on with us? So testosterone boys and ugly girls.
I like that.
Let's get these teen hearts beating faster. I've got more win, a better kiss, a better touch, a better flow. You know it will always just be me. Let's get these teen hearts beating faster, faster. So testosterone boys and ugly girls. Will you dance to this beat and hold on with us? So testosterone boys and ugly girls. Let's get these teen hearts beating faster.
What's going on? Oh, it's going into the intermission. Is that what's happening? Yeah. Alright, so I gotta say, in terms of sound, I think this song is the best on this album for me thus far. I like the instrumentals, I like the various ways in which the vocalist projected his voice. It was just a fantastic listening experience. But overall, the song seems to be from the perspective of somebody who has been heartbroken. It seems that this person was cheated on, in fact. Think of what you did and how I hope to God he was worth it. When the lights are dim and your heart is racing as your fingers touch his skin. I've got more wit, a better kiss, a hotter touch than any boy you'll ever meet. Sweetie, you had me. So this implies that this guy was interested in a girl and perhaps they were in a relationship at some point. Or perhaps she was leading him on. We don't have enough context there, I don't think. But overall, he's suggesting that this girl had him, so he was really into this girl, but in one way or another, this girl deceived him. Perhaps the way this girl acts attracts attention, and this guy is just getting jealous of that attention she's getting. He's thinking that other guys are interested in her, and she's interested in these other guys. You know, at the end of the day, the song is entitled "Lying is the Most Fun a Girl Can Have Without Taking Her Clothes Off." I'm getting the feeling that this girl didn't, you know, necessarily physically get with anybody. Either way, this guy was into her, and he feels like he's being betrayed because this girl seems to be attracting all kinds of attention. So I'm guessing the title has lying in it because he feels like he was lied to in feeling led on by her. And after the chorus, we have this interesting section where he says, "So I guess we're back to us. Oh, cameraman, swing the focus in case I lost my train of thought. Where was it that we left off?" So we're brought back to this concept of this being some type of show or play or something televised. And I like the subtle ways that they're fitting this into the album overall. Here we have like a whole verse dedicated to it, and it's pretty interesting. Then we go into the chorus once more, and that kind of ends the section on some type of energetic note, so to speak, because then we go into the intermission right after. So it's like the narrator, in trying to get the cameraman's attention for that last chorus, it was kind of like the grand finale before the curtains start closing in for that intermission. It's a very cinematic experience, and that goes right back to the introduction where he says this is a picturesque score. Towards the middle of the album with that song, they really make you feel that. Now let's get right into this intermission. Go grab your snacks if you need any. Interesting intermission music here.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue our broadcast of dance. We shall continue now with our piano.
Okay. This is great. I love this. You know, I gotta say, despite what he said in the introduction, I was kind of forgetting that this was kind of to be seen as some kind of play. It really started getting my attention again towards Camisado, and I mean, this last song was really a good way of putting it right back into your mind that this is to be seen as a play of some kind. You see how, you know, the next few songs play into that. That was an intense ending to the intermission, definitely caught my attention. Let's see what the next song has in store for us. It's called But It's Better When We Do.
Now I'm off consenting age, simply forgetting you in a cabaret somewhere downtown where a burlesque queen may even ask my name. The strip joint better instincts to away, smirking between dignified tips of his dignified peach and lime daiquiri.
I was getting into that music. Switched it up on me hard.
I'm exactly where you like me.
I like that melody he goes for in this chorus here. This right here. Now this one is really interesting thematically because we just came from a song, well, before the intermission, we came from a song where we had the perspective of somebody who was heartbroken. The person seemed to have fallen for a girl who maybe wasn't really interested in getting in a relationship with him, or maybe he did get in a relationship with that girl, but either way, it was a deceitful situation for him and he seemed to be upset about it. Here in this song, I feel like we're continuing through this guy's perspective. In verse 1, he's describing the setting. He's saying he's in a cabaret somewhere and he's trying to forget this girl. I'm assuming it's the same girl he was talking about in Lying is the Most Fun a Girl Can Have Without Taking Her Clothes Off. And he implies that he may be finding love in this cabaret. He says, where a burlesque queen may even ask my name. So he's implying that, you know, there's a certain hope for him that he'll find what he's looking for. He's looking for love after having been heartbroken. And then we have this chorus where he says, this is exactly where you'd like me. Praying for love in a lap dance and paying in naivety. So it seems like it's gotten to this point where this guy believes that this girl is praying for his downfall. And he is playing it off as if this heartbreak is destroying him. He's going to the strip joint to find love. So that would suggest that he's bound to be disappointed. But then we have the next section where he says, I'm afraid I may have faked it. I wouldn't be caught dead in this place. So it's like this turn of events where, you know, this guy's pretending to be so hurt by what's happened to him. So he's gonna act hurt to kind of mask the ways in which he is hurt. And by acting hurt, he hopes to control the situation in a way where he could get back at the girl. And that's what I made of the song, and I gotta say, it comes off as an interesting storyline here. I'm intrigued to see where it goes from here. Next song on the album is I Write Sins, Not Tragedies. I think this is that doorknob song.
Well, imagine as I'm pacing and help to hear an exchanging of words. What a beautiful wedding. Tis a bridesmaid to a waiter. But what a shame the poor groom's bride is a whore.
That's rude. This song's really fun to listen to. So that was I Write Sins, Not Tragedies. We have another one of these songs where a certain setting or a certain scenario is described in the first verse and the song plays out from that point. So the scene he's trying to depict very early on in verse 1 is he's pacing through the church corridors and he overhears a bridesmaid talking to a waiter. The bridesmaid says to the waiter, "What a beautiful wedding." And the waiter says, "Yes, beautiful wedding, but it's a shame that the groom's bride is a bad word."
A bad word?
Oh, I'm not gonna say whore, that's mean. And then we go into this chorus. I chime in with a "haven't you people ever heard of," closing the goddamn door. Door, not doorknob. Note to self, it's door and not doorknob. Oh, God. I know, I didn't think it through that much. how old is this album? 2005. I spent the last 13 years of my life thinking it was Doorknob.
Doesn't even make sense.
So, I mean, it's at this point you find that the person is talking from the perspective of the groom. He was pacing through these corridors and he overhears this. And of course, this instills a lot of hesitation in his mind. Is he making the right decision in marrying this person when, you know, I guess public opinion of this woman is a negative one? But the interesting thing about this here is he doesn't want to hear this. He says, haven't you heard of closing the door? Instead of investigating on any of these things, he'd rather be oblivious to them. But then he goes into the next lines of the chorus. No, it's much better to face these kinds of things with a sense of poise and rationality. I guess after panicking for a minute and just wishing he didn't hear that conversation at all, he realizes that, you know what, it is probably better that he knows this. It's better for him not to run away from these statements. It's better for him not to hide from them. All things considered, it's better for him to take the statement into account, understand why it was mentioned, and rationally come to a decision as to what his next course of action would be. And then we have verse 2, and what I like about this is it really leaves the story lingering. Oh well, in fact, I'll look at it this way. I mean, technically our marriage is saved. Well, this calls for a toast, so I'll pour the champagne. This almost functions like a cliffhanger for me in this storytelling. Did he decide to proceed with the marriage, or did he decide to back out? He's saying, I mean, technically our marriage is safe. Is it safe because he decided to ignore these statements? Is it safe because he came to conclusions of acceptance? Or is it safe because it never had a chance to break since it never actually happened? That much is left up to the listener to decide, because after that we just go into the chorus a couple of times and that's the end of the song. Now I gotta say, like, first of all, I really did enjoy the sound of this song. It's really fun to listen to. There's some very interesting storytelling. They've upheld that throughout this album so far as well. And it's been interesting to see how they've been able to make their lyrics really feel visual through the narration and through the use of characters. The way this one ends on a cliffhanger, it really makes me want to get into listening to the rest of the album. I want to know if this story progresses in any sort of direction. I want to know if we have any type of conclusiveness to this. And I feel like we've had an interesting progression that's led up to this point through, you know, the past few songs. It really feels like a story has been unfolding before our ears. But anyways, let's get into this next song to see if the story continues. I like this sound too. Ooh.
Give us this day our daily dose of full affliction. Forgive our sins. Forged at the pulpit with forked tongue, selling false sermons. Gentlemen, if you're gonna preach, for God's sakes, preach with conviction. Strike up the band, whoa, the conductor is beckoning. Sing it like you mean it, no. Don't you get it, now, don't you move. Just stay where I can see you. Down the lights.
I wasn't expecting that. This background noise really makes you feel like you're in a play, in a theater.
And I, for one, won't stand for this. If the scene were a parish, you'd all be condemned. Conductor is beckoning. Come, congregation, let's sing it like you mean it. No, don't you get it now? Don't you move. We are all in for a show tonight. Stay where I can see you down the lights. Strike up the band, whoa, the conductor is beckoning. Come, congregation, let's sing it like you mean it. No, don't you get it now? Don't you move. Don't you move.
That was I Constantly Thank God for Esteban. That was another one of those fun sounding songs to me. And an interesting thing about this one is we have two different things blending in here. You know, on one hand, it seems like it still fits into this idea of some kind of play, but on the other hand, it could be some type of religious figure directing a church. But with him saying, if the scene were a parish, you'd all be condemned, I'm more inclined to believe that this is, once more, a scene in some type of theater play. But with what we get in verse 1, it feels like we have another type of critique here. There's a lot of mention of deceitfulness and fake things. We have faux affliction, we have forgive our sins forged at the pulpit, we have forked tongues selling faux sermons. So what I'm getting out of that is people are being punished because of a certain agenda. Because if somebody's preaching these faux afflictions and is forgiving forged sins which were forged at the pulpit, so where the person was preaching, that's where it was forged, that would suggest that the people in this scene, they're made to feel bad in order to promote a certain agenda. And if we take this out of the religious context that it's being said in this song, it could relate really nicely to what was said earlier in the album about how his words wouldn't be approved. Here he's saying that his words wouldn't be approved because it doesn't fit within the guidelines of what the person in power is preaching. So he's going to be condemned for saying what he has to say. And that's how I heard this song. Now the next song on the album goes by the name of There's a Good Reason These Tables Are Numbered, Honey. You Just Haven't Thought of It Yet. I think this might be the longest title on this album. Indeed it is. Let's get right into it.
Overcoats, canes, and top hats. With the doorman from that moment, you'll be out of place and under duress. I'm wrecking with black slacks with accentuating off-white pinstripes. Whoa, everything goes according to plan. You can't stand it, because it takes so under your breath. You're reading lips, when did he get uncomfortable having you?
This is another fun sounding song.
Just can't keep up with fashionistas, and tonight you are, and to them you look like talk to a mirror, with your back. I'm the new cancer, never look better, you can't stand it, because you say so under your breath, you're reading lips, when did he get all confident, haven't you heard that, I'm the new cancer.
This is awesome.
Haven't you heard that I'm the new cancer? I've never looked better, and you can't stand it. I know, it just doesn't feel like it. I will know what's sizing you up. I've never been so surreptitious. Of course I'll be distracted when I spike on a punch. And I know, it just doesn't feel like it. It just doesn't feel like a night out with no one sizing you up. I've never been so surreptitious, so of course I'll be distracted when I spike the punch.
That was There's a Good Reason These Tables Are Numbered. You Just Haven't Thought of It Yet. Another one of those really cinematic feeling songs, and seems to follow that story we were at earlier in the album. Specifically, the song I'm thinking of is But It's Better When We Do, where, he's in this club and he's dealing with heartbreak and he's thinking of ways that he could hurt this person that broke his heart. Here it feels like he's still feeling vengeful towards that girl. At the door, she's convinced to give away all her accessories that, would make her more fashionable, I guess, as this story would suggest, because he says, you'll be out of place and underdressed. And he's enjoying every moment of that. He's really got his mindset on revenge, and he's carrying out his plans in this song. And he's actually satisfied with his actions. He's saying things like, I've never looked better and you can't stand it. Wrecking this evening already and loving every minute of it. He's reading this woman's lips and she says, when did he get all confident? So, throughout this song, this isn't looking like one of those situations where a person is trying to get revenge, and then once they get revenge, they find that they're not really satisfied with what they've done. It's not one of those situations. It's very much one where he's seeking out revenge and he's satisfied with what he's accomplishing. The things that he experienced led to a certain level of hate building up in him. And towards the end of the song, I heard something that was really interesting. I know it just doesn't feel like a night out with no one sizing you up. This goes back to, I think it was Lying is the Most Fun a Girl Could Have. There we kind of got the full story as to how this guy found himself in a position where he got hurt. He seemed to really like this girl that, he's getting revenge on here in this song. And what led him to being hurt was how much attention this girl was getting. The way this album has depicted this girl is as if all eyes are always on her. In Time to Dance, we're left to figure whether this girl is just acting out to get all this attention, or if she's really in a position where she requires attention. But in Lying is the Most Fun a Girl Can Have, this guy that is attached to the girl, he's having a hard time dealing with the fact that this girl is getting all the attention because he wants her to himself. With the song But It's Better When We Do, we get to see the lengths to which he's willing to go to make this girl feel the way he feels. Now in this song here, he's taking it to new heights. He's really actively trying to embarrass her. That's what I make of track number 12. Now we go into the last song, track number 13. How is this going to close out the album? It's called Build God Then We'll Talk. Is it going to fit into this storyline between the boy and the girl? Or was this song the concluding point of this story, and will we end on different themes that we've seen throughout this album? Let's see, let's get right into it.
It's these substandard motels on the line, corner of 4th and Fremont, straight appealing only cause they're just that unappealing. In practice, Catholic would cross themselves upon a tree, and the habit of decomposing right before your very eyes, along with the people inside. What a wonderful caricature of intimacy. Tonight's an trench from a lawyer and a virgin, rising with the rosary tucked inside her lingerie. She's getting a job at the firm come Monday. The missus will save her the cheating attorney. Lighting aside, she really needs this money. Not to mention the constable and his proposition for that virgin. Yes, the one lawyer met with on strictly business. As he said to the missus, there was a terrible crash between her and the bed. She spilled the purse on her back and held the price of a different kind. What a wonderful caricature of intimacy. Raindrops on roses and girls in white dresses and sleeping with roaches and taking the shades of the sheets, and before all the stains and nothing more of your least favorite things inside. What a wonderful caricature of intimacy.
Epic violin solo to end this.
Raindrops on shades of the sheets, and before all the stains and nothing more of your least favorite things.
Here we have the grand finale of the album, and similarly to what we've seen in a few songs on this album, verse 1 is used to describe a setting. The setting here is a decaying motel, not the type of place you'd want to stay at. In fact, he says, appealing only cause they're just that unappealing. So the only appeal is how bad it looks. It's impressive how bad this motel looks. Then we have this chorus where he says, what a wonderful caricature of intimacy inside. We're not left to wonder about those lines for too long, because in the very next verse, he gives us a situation. We have a lawyer and a woman who's described as a virgin here. This woman is going to get with this lawyer because she needs the money. And then very soon after, in this same verse, we come to find that this lawyer is actually married. But despite the immorality there, this woman is willing to do this because she's justifying it to herself that, you know, she needs this money, so she's willing to do this. And there we have this explanation of this caricature of intimacy. And then very soon after, we have the depiction of a very similar situation involving the same girl but with another man. And they kind of leave that story there for the listener to decide where it's going to go next. But with those two sections, they give us ample information to decide in what direction this is going. It's like this downward spiral inspired by immorality. The person found herself in an unfavorable situation, so the way she decided to get out of it was by turning to something that she may not have necessarily agreed with, but that she decided to justify as something she can do. But one of these decisions leads to another. You know, you open that door, you're gonna keep going down that hall. And I feel like here we're touching on themes that we saw earlier in this album, like nails for breakfast and tacks for snacks. There we had a person experiencing pain and they were having troubles finding ways to cope with it, so they ended up taking pills. But then we found that those pills weren't enough, so they needed other pills. And there, one thing led to another, and by Camisado, we find that this person's in the hospital. They were trying to do what's best for them to get themselves out of the situation they were in, but ultimately that ended up hurting them. Similarly here, this girl is finding herself in a situation where she's having issues with money, so she's willing to go against her moral code to get herself out of this situation, but one thing leads to another, and she's just going further and further down that path, and somewhere down the road she's going to be losing herself. And that's what I made of this song, and I feel like this ties together a strong theme that we saw throughout this album. It's something that was introduced very early. And the second track on this album, they say, "It seems the artists these days are not who you think." So we'll pick back up on that on another page. Now with the very last song here on the album, they're describing this woman as a virgin, but even when she was with the constable, they were still describing her as a virgin. And with what they were explaining about the lawyer situation, it would seem that that was just what she was being portrayed as. It seems like she was no longer what she was portraying herself as, because she had started making decisions that took her away from being that person. That was probably the most explicit mention of somebody not being what you would think they are. But throughout this album, we had various perspectives as to how people get to that point. People get to a point where they're no longer what you think they are because they have to deal with things. And we found throughout this album that it's hard for people to go through those things publicly, so they'll deal with them privately. Somewhere along the line, in a lot of cases, these people lose themselves because they make decisions that alter who they are. On the surface, it's hard to see those decisions. So what ends up happening is those people just end up getting judged. On the surface, you may be tempted to look at somebody and say, okay, at point A they were good, at point B they were bad. But you don't look at how they got from point A to point B. The boy in this album who thinks the girl is trying to hurt him, he just sees it as this girl was trying to hurt him, and so he tries to hurt her. So what made him go from a guy who was just loving towards a girl to being a vengeful person? Well, it was a certain heartbreak that he didn't know how to deal with. What led this girl to be deceitful in this guy's eyes? Well, if Time to Dance is any indication, she was going through her own personal issues, and for that reason she required attention, and that attention is what that guy didn't like. And if we bring all of this back to music and artistry, this album would suggest that artists don't conform to certain ideas just to conform to them. You don't just jump from point A to point B. There's a reason you get to point B, and the path is altered by a certain fear that's pushing at that freedom of expression. It's pushing it in a certain direction. And in a song like I Constantly Thank God for Esteban, I feel like the band is criticizing the things that tend to push that freedom of expression away. And yeah, overall, that's what I made of this album. A very cinematic experience. I really like how they were able to do that throughout this album. I had a constant feeling of understanding the setting that this was taking place in. So it's really cool how this sound felt visual. And they took advantage of that to make us see and understand certain scenarios so as to cover interesting aspects about the themes throughout this album. And I really enjoyed that element about this experience. And that does it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Would you like to see me react to some more Panic at the Disco? Please leave a like on this video if you enjoyed the video. I always appreciate the support, and I will see you all next time. Have a great day, y'all.